Please. We're going to go ahead and get started with our elections meeting. It's a special meeting. Today's date is March 6, 2025. The time is 11:18 a.m. In attendance are Commissioners Eberlein, Duncan, and Matari. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Public comment. Well, there will be public comment at the end. So it's just an opportunity for people to speak before we hear the issue. Anyone on the line? Jonathan? Nope. Okay. All right. Our first business item, discussion regarding Kootenai County voting precincts per Idaho Code 34-301. This is a discussion, and it has three components: review of precinct boundaries, 302, 303, 311, 519, and 520, precinct dissolution of moving 523 into 513, and a new precinct creation, number 209. And we have Asa Gray and is David Christensen here to discuss this.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for hearing us today. I have a brief slideshow to go over these proposed changes and the maps involved and some other data. So I would like to jump in that first. Asa Gray, Elections Manager for the record. So we are proposing a few precinct boundary adjustments, and as you mentioned, the dissolution of Precinct 523 into Precinct 513 and the creation of new Precinct 209. So first off, I want to talk about the reasons why we are proposing these adjustments now. We need to dissolve court-created Precinct 523, which currently has one registered voter prior to the next election. For Commissioner Eberlein's benefit, in the November election, we had a court-ordered water district organization question that went on the ballot, and the court order required us to create a precinct that matched the boundaries of the proposed water district, which happened to be 5 parcels of land and 1 registered voter. So we have a precinct that now exists that we don't want to have existing going forward for multiple reasons, including logistics and privacy of that person's vote. So we need the board to adopt new precincts at a minimum to get rid of this before the May election.
And the good part about that, now I will quit wondering why in the heck you guys did one precinct.
Not by our choice.
Yeah, exactly. Secondly, we want to help address the growing population in the Athol Spirit Lake area while complying with the legislative district boundaries between District 2 and 3, and I will get into the registered voter numbers on those details here in a few minutes. Finally, the other reason to do this now is to reduce ballot styles for poll workers in precincts 302 and 520 by reducing splits within those precincts. Splits are different combinations of taxing districts and school zones for everyone's benefit. So first off, I want to address the dissolution of Precinct 523 into 513. You can see on the map the boundaries of current Precinct 523. Again, like I mentioned, it's a very small precinct. This will just be dissolved back into Precinct 513 where it existed prior to the last election. Secondly is the creation of Precinct 209. This precinct is proposed to be created from portions of existing Precinct 202, which is up here and also included this portion of the proposed precinct, and a small portion of existing Precinct 203, this rectangle right here. And I will get into how many registered voters from each precinct are encompassed into this new proposed precinct here in just a minute, but I wanted to show that on the map. I also like to mention this doesn't affect any city residents for the city of Athol or Spirit Lake. This is all unincorporated area. Next, we would like to shift the boundary between precincts 519 and 520. Currently, the boundary is this red line, which largely follows the school district boundary, as I will show you here, between Post Falls and Coeur d'Alene school districts, with the exception of this little corner and this section here in the middle that follows a road. We would like to shift this to follow the entire school district boundary all the way across so that we eliminate Post Falls School District ballots from Precinct 520. This affects 6 registered voters in this area. Then we have a couple boundary shifts concerning Precincts 302 and 303 and 311. I'll address the larger shift between 302 and 303 first. It correlates or regards this almost triangular section of land between Ramsey Diagonal and Brunner Road. This section of land we would like to move from Precinct 302 into Precinct 303, and the primary reason for that is this next map. This map shows the difference between, this is 4 different splits, 4 different potential ballots in this small section of land. This is created because this vertical line goes or it shows the dividing between Northern Lakes Fire District and Timberlake Fire District. And this horizontal-ish line shows the difference between Lakeland School District Zone 2 and Lakeland School District Zone 1 for their trustees. So we have 4 different ballots, potential ballots, within this section of land if all these districts are up at once. And we, as you all know, are getting more and more levies and more different questions and things on the ballot, so it's more common for us to have fire districts up. Additionally, school trustees and fire commissioners are elected at the same time in November of odd years. So when these school zones are up, then it's also common the fire districts are up as well. I will mention that by moving this into Precinct 303, 3 of these 4 splits already exist in Precinct 303. The only one that does not is this small chunk where Northern Lakes Fire and Lakeland Zone 2 are together. So we'd be adding 1 split into Precinct 303. But we will get rid of 3 splits within Precinct 302 because the only one that exists elsewhere in Precinct 302 is this combination of Northern Lakes Fire and Lakeland Zone 1. Then we have another boundary shift, and the primary reason for doing this is we're adding population into Precinct 303 from the last shift I showed you. However, we don't want to increase Precinct 303 by a large amount in population because it is already around 1,800 registered voters, which I will show here in a minute. So to help offset that, we have 2 proposed shifts. One is moving this section of land from Precinct 303 into Precinct 302. This is not any different taxing district than the surrounding area. It won't affect any splits at all. And then moving this section of land from Pope Road and Ohio Match Road on into the forest land and down to Garwood from 303 into 311. And this, again, is done to help offset the population shift there from 302 to 303 that we're proposing. This would add one potential split to Precinct 311 because there are a couple homes out here that don't have any fire coverage. And so that would be a potential extra ballot there if fire districts were on the ballot in that area. And then I know this is small to see. You have it in your packets as well. This is just a proposed overall countywide map. The reason I'm showing this when it's not as easy to see is ultimately, if you give us direction to bring this forward at the next Tuesday's business meeting, this is what you will actually be adopting is the new precinct boundaries in total. So this is the map showing some of those, and I will point out this, as you can see Precinct 209 here. You can see some of that extended section of 311, the extended section of 303, and then the little bit of boundary shift right here between 519 and 520. You really can't see 523 going away. It's way too small in this map. So let's talk about registered voters. So currently, our registered voters stand as follows for these precincts. And I've included precinct 513 on here because it will be adding the registered voter from 523 in this proposal. So you can see we have a variety of different size precincts across the board here. Now, one thing I would like to point out is precincts 202 and 203. This is our 4th largest precinct by registered voter count, and this is our 6th largest precinct by registered voter count. So we are already seeing that we need to address these. In addition, when we did redistricting in 2022 and overhauled the entire countywide map for our precincts, these precincts, Precinct 202 a month later at the close of registration for the May primary in 2022, had 1,787 registered voters, and Precinct 203 had 1,758 registered voters. So in 3 years, we have added almost 150 voters in 203, and we have added 220 in 202. If that trend continues until redistricting in 2032, we will have a 2,500 registered voter precinct in 202. And there is, I looked today specifically on the map in Precinct 202 specifically, there are quite a few large parcels of land that are currently undeveloped that have the potential, at least from the map, to be developed. I'm not a builder, I can't speak to suitability of building sites, but including within future precinct proposed 209, there's a 280-acre section of land that is currently undeveloped. And there's a similarly large section in 202. So it is not unreasonable to expect that 202 specifically will continue to grow. And if we do not do something to address that in the next couple years, statute does not allow us to alter precincts between January 15th of a year ending in 8 and September 15th of a year ending in 1 due to the census, except for taking an existing precinct and making it into 2. So the only thing we could do if we don't address this sometime this year or in the next couple years is divide precinct 202. We couldn't take a chunk of 203 and help address population growth there. We wouldn't be able to do any of that. So since we had to come before you for precinct 523 now, we thought it prudent to do this at once. Now, another thing I'll show here is the projected registered voter counts. Now, these vary slightly. Obviously, our registered voter numbers change on a daily basis as people register, pass away, move, things like that. And also, this does not necessarily include secured voters, of which we have about 70 or 80 countywide. But this is a very close estimate to our expected registered voter count if you give direction to move forward with this proposal. Precinct 202 would go down about 584 registered voters. Precinct 203 would go down 246 registered voters. And these would be combined into Precinct 209, and it would have 830 registered voters. This would be one of our smaller precincts. We do have 2 precincts smaller than that out in the Harrison area at this time. And again, like I mentioned, there is quite a large amount of room for growth in both the new 209 and the other precincts. Precinct 302 would go down 283 registered voters, and 303 with all the shifts would go up about 37 registered voters. And then the majority of that shift goes into 311, which was already drawn lower due to the Hayden Canyon neighborhood that is slowly being built up. However, that neighborhood is not growing as quickly, at least on the north side of Lancaster, as we anticipated at census time. So we are still well below our average precinct size. When we redrew the precincts, when Dave redrew the precincts in 2022, the average target size for a precinct was about 1,500 registered voters. And we vary across the board between in the 1,300s and 1,700s now, of course, with growth and shifting of population. But we are still well below that target number, even increasing that here. Again, Precinct 513 adds the 1 registered voter in, and then, as I mentioned before, 6 registered voters are affected between 519 and 520 in getting rid of that school district split. So let's talk about the people affected by the proposed changes. Our current total number of registered voters countywide as of today is 109,997. Our projected total number of voters that will change precinct numbers or voting precincts from this is 1,479. The projected total number of voters that will change voting locations due to this proposal is 496. And that is because all the shifts between precincts 302 and 303, those precincts both vote at Garwood Elementary, so those voters will have a new number of precinct, but they will not have a new polling place. Additionally, we are already planning to co-locate new precinct 209 with 202 at Timberlake High School. So 3/4 of those voters being put into 209 will not be changing polling places if they were already in 202. Affected voters will be notified of changes to their precinct or polling place prior to the May 20th election, just as any polling place changes that may happen in general from any of our other precincts not being touched, we would notify any voters pursuant to law. Additionally, we only currently have, from everything I've reviewed, there is only 1 sitting precinct committee person that is affected by this change, which is the Democratic Party PC representative for Precinct 303. That person is being moved into Precinct 311, which according to the latest information we've received from the Kootenai County Democratic Party and that they've updated on their website, Precinct 311 is not listed as having a current precinct representative, so they could in that case, easily appoint that person to that precinct. And again, that's based on the last information that we have at our office that they've provided us with. So finally, my last thing is we're asking for your direction today. Does the Board of County Commissioners direct the Elections Department to move forward with presenting a resolution at the March 11th business meeting to adopt the proposed precinct boundaries? And with that, I am happy to answer any questions. If there's any questions for Dave on any of the redrawing, I know he'd be happy to answer any of those as well.
Thank you. Any questions up here?
Nope.
No questions. As far as direction goes, are we good with elections presenting us with an updated map?
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I'm just here from the public, if there's any.
Well, but we have to give them direction now, right?
We don't have to take a motion.
Well, no, there's no motion.
Right.
I'm just saying the direction for whether or not he should.
And I'll be comfortable
Present it.
giving direction after public comment.
Okay, so you want to switch that around a little bit. That's fine. Did you have anything, Commissioner Eberlein? No? Okay, we'll move right into public comment. Who would like to speak? Come on up and just identify yourself. Yeah, by the microphone. It should be on.
I'm Hari Heath, and I'm here representing Legislative District 2. I'm the Republican chair for that district. And I appreciate the presentation because mostly I came here to be informed. I found out about this quite a long time ago, or recently, and I wasn't able to glean much from looking at my phone at this huge map. So it was a good presentation, and I understand the need. I do have one question, basically regarding Precinct 209. Does that fit within the Legislative District 2 boundaries?
You want to go ahead and answer that, Asa?
I would love to answer that. So let me back up to the slide for 209. So the current legislative district boundary between District 2 and 3 runs right here on Brunner Road. So this is all coming out of existing precincts 202 and 203, which are legislative district 2 precincts. So this does fit within the legislative district boundaries, yes.
That was a concern, and basically within the Republican Party rules, which I didn't read, but I know that when we have precinct committeemen elected at the reorg, they remain in a precinct even if the boundaries change in a precinct until the next reorg. But I don't know what the rules state about creation of a new precinct, and so I don't know exactly how that works out for us if we just if we have to appoint a new person to a new precinct. I'm not sure how that works. And I guess one of my questions or suggestions is when does this take effect? Do we not have this precinct until the next reorg will be in May of 2026? Is that when these would go into effect? What's the time frame for these be going into effect?
I'd be happy to answer that.
Are you
I
okay with
can't
that?
speak to the party rules. I can speak to the state statute, which first off I will mention doesn't allow us to draw precincts across legislative district lines. So we wouldn't have attempted to do that anyways. And then in regards to timeline, this would be in effect for the May 20th, 2025 election. So it would be in effect upon passage of the resolution by the board at a business meeting. And then so we would be notifying affected voters, the parties. Again, I did notify the parties about this meeting. And if I may, I'd like to take this moment to also mention we did run this through legal in regards to statute, in regards to redrawing precincts, because statute addresses the redrawing of precincts in general election years must be done by January 15th. Statute also defines general election years as even years, but statute is silent on the redraw of precincts in odd years. And so legal has said that based on the statutes in place that we are perfectly okay to do this now. There's nothing prohibiting that in statute. And that's I wanted to mention that as well because I forgot to mention that in my presentation.
Commissioner Duncan, did you want to add to that?
Just that, obviously your party chair will instruct the body on, filling of the vacancy if not, but, both parties have a lot of, from time to time, have a lot of unfilled seats, and that's not really a problem, I guess.
Definitely not a problem, just be another, well, we'd essentially have a vacancy to fill. So that was kind of my concern, is when it takes effect.
Yeah, so it would take effect March 11th.
So, and I can appreciate that you want to keep your precincts to a reasonable size, and we look forward to the day when Kootenai joins Benoit and having all paper ballots hand-counted in the precinct by people, not computers. So,
I just want to state we do have paper ballots. In Idaho, it's required that every county have paper ballots.
but we hand-count them by people in
okay.
Benoit,
Yeah.
with no tabulators, et cetera, so we look forward to that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Yes, sir. Just state your name when you get up there, please.
Commissioners, my name's Tom Sanner. I'm a committeeman in 406. And I just had a couple questions regarding the current maps that are on the website. When this goes forward, will a lot of the streets, because of the growth, aren't on the maps? Will there be some kind of help that the county gives to the election so that they can add street names and streets that aren't currently?
Are you talking about new streets or ones that are currently on the map that aren't?
Well, some of them don't have names on them, so will those be added so that we can find where we are at?
Not necessarily. When you put, we can only put so many names on a map. So depending upon how, zoomed in, how big the precinct is, we can get to a point where it would just cover up all the roads. So we try to put as many streets as we can and label them for folks so that they can see. What we will do is any new road, we'll remake the maps, and by us doing that, we bring in the new data for all the current roads that we know about and that kind of stuff. And then the system will go ahead and label as many as it can possibly do. Without going in and literally hand labeling every road and then placing it and twisting it like we do on our street atlas, which takes a long time. We just can't get every street name. And it has to do with.
But there'll be some that might be put in.
Yes, absolutely. Every time that we make any of these changes, we update those maps. Asa can speak more often to exactly how those are updated. They are updated in my office, but they come from a request from Asa to one of my staff. And I'm not sure exactly how often we update them, but I know with anything that we change, anytime we make a new map, we always bring in the new road coverage, our current road coverage. And so from that date, that would be all the roads that we know about. And then the system goes ahead, labels as many of the roads as it can to make it reasonably useful and legible. And then we print the map from there.
And then when will these be available? Updated on the website as soon as it's passed, March 11th, or?
Within probably a few days. I mean, usually once we hear that it's done, my staff jumps right on top of those updates then. So usually within a couple days.
And just one quick question.
Yes.
Asher, the 303 and 311, is it Deanna Kahlberg?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. All right, so I need to get her transferred to 311.
That would be your central committees. Yep.
Yep.
I have a question for David.
Just here on behalf of them.
Go ahead, Commissioner Duncan.
So I just have a question for you. Does the county offer, I'm pretty sure I have a spiral-bound street map book that is available for purchase. So
Yes, the street atlas is available for purchase from the Board of County Commissioners office itself.
Yeah.
That street atlas is updated every summer. I like to have it to our reprographics by July 1st.
Okay.
And so that's our cycle on updating that.
So it's upstairs if we go and buy one?
Yeah, they're updated, like I said, July 1st. So the one that's there was updated this past year, by July 1st of 2024. I'll be updating it once again here this summer.
Yeah.
We can certainly get it to you in a PDF. I've had it out online for many years. But yeah, I can get it to you in a PDF if you
Maybe
wish.
purchase the new one in July then.
Yeah, and there's a black and white version and a color version. The black and white's about half the price of the color, and it has to do with the cost to the county in printing. That goes. I believe they were $15 and $30.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Public comment? Yes, come on up.
Can I call and phone. She's having trouble calling in.
Does she just want me to read what the statement she sent in today?
I don't know, but she's not very techy, so she's like, can you comment? But then I have my own question too, so I just want to make that clear.
Well,
Melanie's last name, please.
Vanderveer? Vanderveer, I think. It could be two E's.
assuming it's okay, we can give her public
She's on the
comment.
phone.
Did she
She's
get
on
in?
the phone. Yeah.
That might be her.
Are you on the
Then
phone, Melanie? Can you hear us?
comment after her.
I am on the phone.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, just
Oh,
state
okay.
your name.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Melanie Vanderveer and Precinct Committee Person of 203, and I appreciate you taking my call. I am in disagreement with the taking away of my precinct, part of it. 2 years ago, they did take away almost half of my precinct that I had been working for 13 years. And now they added that in 2 years ago, the part you're going to take out now. And I've been working it for 2 years, learning, getting to know the people. And I believe that all these new voters are from Trump asking, please go out and vote, make it too big to rig. And there were people registering all day long at the November election that I have never seen so many people. And I believe there are people that don't usually come out and vote. Well, they aren't. They just registered to vote that day and voted for Trump. And I don't believe that they're going to be a part of the process. And so here we'll be losing part of my precinct, which make my numbers even smaller. And so I hope that you would take that into consideration, that a lot of these people that registered are not probably going to vote in the next election. And so I would appreciate it if you leave my 203 precinct alone and leave that section in there and not create that new precinct, which will make my precinct smaller. And I've been working hard at learning that area. So, yes, that's my comment. So I'm against it and hope that you would consider that. And thank you so much for letting me speak today.
Sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Duncan, did you have a question?
Yeah, Melanie, were you able to watch the presentation from elections?
Yes, I was watching everything. And so I did see where they say there's growing, this area is growing, yes, but it's not really growing that much in that area. There's not much being built there. There's no apartments. There's nothing like that. And so I don't understand that big growth out here because I'm not seeing it, and especially in that little area that they're going to take and make a new precinct for. And so I think I can handle that area. I've been doing it, and they took away half of it last time, and just 2 years they're now trying to take another part of it away. I'm not understanding it. I thought they do these things every 10 years, and now just 2 years later, they're taking more away. And so I'm not happy about it. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, thank you for your comment. Did you have more, Commissioner Duncan? I'm sorry.
I think Mr. Gray had a...
Sure.
I'd love, if I may, to just address a little bit of that with the growth piece. It's true that chunk of 203 that would be in part of 209 itself is not experiencing as much of the growth. More of the growth is happening in 202. However, other portions of Precinct 203 are experiencing growth. We're experiencing some growth in the city of Athol. We're experiencing growth towards the Bayview side of the precinct. And we don't have the luxury of increasing Bayview's precinct by large amounts either. And this is our 6th largest precinct by registered voter count. Precinct 203 is. So when we looked at taking a chunk from 203, because I will say, yes, she is absolutely correct. We had tons of registrations at 203. We had lines out the door at Athol Community Center and lines backed up to get their ballots once they registered. When we look at this, my goal was to take a geographic chunk that would not interfere, one, with the city of Athol, two, would be easily understandable by road boundaries, because many of these areas to this side are not clear-cut straight roads. They're loops there where one side would be drawn in and the other side would not. I wanted to make it very understandable. So that's why we chose this chunk of 203 to be moved. And if 203 was not one of our larger precincts, then we would have just probably looked at what we could do with 202. But between the legislative district boundary to the south, which didn't allow us to do anything south of Bruner in a new precinct, that's where we came up with this shape for the new precinct. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Nothing further for me.
Okay. Well, thank you for your comment, Ms. Vanderveer. And did you have
Summer?
Summer? Yeah, you can come on up.
Okay, so Asa, I'm gonna try to repeat what you said. The whole odd year thing is just, it doesn't sound like English to me. So you're saying you're supposed to do it in an even year, but the legislation doesn't say you can't do it in an odd year? Is that what that legalese says? Because you even sent that to me by email, and I read it like 3 times, and I'm like, this is not English.
I'd be happy to address that. So statute says if we do it in an even year, we have to do it by January 15th.
Okay,
Statute is silent on odd years.
okay.
Because the state level the Secretary of State's office even does not get as involved in our odd year elections. They're run more at the county level. They have certain roles, of course, throughout everything. But in regards to a lot of like the canvassing process, there's no state board of canvassers for odd year elections. They only do it for primaries in general.
Okay.
So that statute is silent on odd year changes.
I'm not totally against the 209 precinct, but I just wanted to echo some of Melanie's concerns, mainly because historically, I think before you guys did, because I loved your presentation in 2022, and the renumbering is like actually logical and not like random numbers that aren't supposed to be next to each other. But Melanie's precinct, I think since I've lived here in 15 years, she's had things taken away from her, I think at least 5 times, if not more. So I think it's very hard for that to not look like, and there's one particular person that you probably will know who I'm talking about, has initials of DR, that always runs against her, that will now be able to run again. And so for her and for me, it just, I know you guys may not know that, but it just looks a little partial or on purpose. But, and I know maybe that area is a lot of growth, but it's just hard to not go, really, again, with the people in that area? So, and is there any way you consider putting this off until after the May election? Because I'm not against it. I just think the timing right now would be, I'd rather have it happen over the summer, but that's just my input.
Commissioner Duncan, did you want to address that?
Well, just the fact that we have to do the one boundary change because of the one voter in 523. So, yeah, that has to be done now, because otherwise it will not be a secret vote. Everybody knows what the one vote
And will
would
the
have been.
postcards go out for the changes?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So,
I also want to state something. In 22, we had the redistricting, right?
Yes.
Was these precincts, they were in a previous legislative 3 district, correct?
No, they were in Legislative District 2, but Legislative District 2 at that time came all the way down into Hayden.
Okay.
And Legislative District 3 was Rathdrum, Post Falls, and 4 was Coeur d'Alene. We didn't have any of Legislative District 5 prior to redistricting.
Okay. So we added, I think,
A portion of a legislative
gained
district.
part of a
Yeah, which
legislative
happened to
district.
be Legislative District 2. The way they drew the maps, we got all of 3, 4, and 5. And then we're about, I want to say, about a third of the voter population in District 2, somewhere between a quarter and a third.
So that was driven by the redrawing of the legislative districts, not because of population. Today is because of population.
It was driven by both, because when they redrew the legislative
Of course.
districts, they do that on population. But yes, that was our redraw in 22 was based on them totally redrawing our county into different legislative districts, and then us trying to balance some of our registered voter counts at that time. And then today is, again, because of registered voter counts, we're trying to provide balance. And if I may add one more thought that came to me, on the point of people voting or not voting or registering, we do have a large chunk of population that only votes in presidentials or general in 2 years or 4 years. But unfortunately, we can't predict what ballot question or candidate race is going to draw people out to vote. So when we look at these, we truly do have to look at our registered voters and our growth, because we can't predict if the Coeur d'Alene Fire Bond is going to get 60% vote or 30% turnout vote. And that, as you all know, which will be before you here in the next month or so, to order ballots for the May election, that is a big driver in our attempted predictions and why those are so hard.
Thank you. Any other comment? Well,
What- come
why
up
don't you
to the-
come on up to the podium and
Yes, hello, Steve Cochran. I'm the precinct committeeman for 302. And in regards, could you please clarify, Asa, where the polling positions for 302 and 303, will it still be Garwood Elementary?
Yes.
Will there be an additional precinct?
No, those two precincts will remain voting there. Just this chunk of voters that's being moved between the precincts will go to a different line within the building.
Just a different, okay.
Yeah.
All right, because one of the concerns was the parking lot at Garwood is not very big, and during the last election, it was mayhem out there, so, and lines out the door, but, you know, I guess that's a good problem to have. But in regards to people trying to figure out where to park, that was an issue that we had during the presidential election.
Can I state something, because that's really, really important, as we're trying to find new polling locations. So we have to have ADA compliant buildings, and public buildings have to be ADA compliant. Churches, I think we learned that last class. I'm not necessarily agreeing that they have to be ADA compliant. But what we're finding as we grow in population in these precincts and voter registration, we do not have the locations to have the spaces and ADA compliant. So we're really running into that, where now we're looking at the fairgrounds, right? So I just want people to take that in consideration when we have more election day turnout and we don't have as many locations or smaller rooms or parking. This is what we're constrained to in Kootenai County, because we don't have the space, the buildings that are ADA compliant, and then the parking too.
thank you. Any other? I don't think we can do that if you've already spoken.
Yeah. Is it a question? Yeah, you can ask staff afterwards.
Well, people stick around, and ask afterwards.
After the
It's just-
meeting, sir. After the meeting.
Yeah, after the meeting. Just typically with public comment, each person can come up. Is there anyone else in here who has not spoken who would like to speak? Is there anyone on the line, Jonathan? Okay. Well, with that said, what is our direction?
I would support bringing the resolution forward March 11th.
Second.
Okay. Well, then you have direction.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
And-
you for the presentation. It was really helpful.
Yes, thank you. 11, I'm sorry, did you have? No? Okay, 11:55, meeting adjourned.